Alright, what's up, yo? Today is it's a new type of video. Well, it's not a new type of video, it's just a new environment, I guess. So today's, don't mind my stickers. Today's message is really centered on a Bible verse that I was reading the other day in my devotional. It's in Hebrews chapter 4, and it's really the last 3 verses of the chapter. It's verses 14 through 16, and the same thought of what happens at the end of 4 goes into chapter 5 as well. But the topic that it's talking about is Jesus being the great high priest. And so context behind this is written after Jesus has already died on the cross and has already fulfilled his commitment to the Lord and to humanity. And he's already done what he came on the earth to do. So this is written afterwards. So Hebrews chapter 4, verses 14 through 16 say, "Since then we have a great high priest who has passed through the heavens, Jesus, the Son of God. Let us hold fast our confession. For we do not have a high priest who is unable to sympathize with our weaknesses, but one who in every aspect has been tempted as we are, yet without sin. Let us then with confidence draw near to the throne of grace, that we may receive mercy and find grace to help in time of need." I don't know about y'all, but hearing that was a great encouragement to me whenever I first read this. And I kind of forgot about how powerful this passage is, because until the other day when I was reading it in my devotional, because I've been trying to study like how to be more content in this season of my life, and just like how can I be content but not be complacent? You know, how can I be content right, instead of being just complacent? How can I strive for more but be okay if more doesn't happen? How can I really truly submit all of my dreams, all of my desires, all of my plans, and submit them to God, to then turn around and have my heart's desires match up with his desires, match up with his plans, match up with his purposes for my life. And so I was doing this devotional about being content, and this came up. And the first thing that it made me realize was, in order to be content, I think the first thing to do as a believer is to remember the weight of what Jesus did on the cross. Remembering the weight of what Jesus did on the cross, to me, at least in the context of being content, means to understand that he was tempted in every way. He took on all the weight that we feel whenever we do wrong, or the weight that we have whenever we're guilty, or whenever we're worried or anxious, or when we're mourning or whatever. He took all of that weight on at one time, as well as all of the punishment that we deserve at one time on the cross. A feeling that none of us know about. None of us have felt the punishment that we truly deserve. And he took on everybody's at once. And so to remember that every single morning, and to know that, to me, I believe that what he did on the cross is real. It's not just some story in a book. It's serious, it's real. So for me, knowing that what he did was real, and that I couldn't do that, because my life is not sinless, it's sinful. I'm a sinful person just like every other human being, but that means that I couldn't be an offering worthy to carry everybody else's sin, so I could never take on the responsibility that Jesus had. And so with being content, that remembering who Jesus is, what he did on the cross for me and for everybody, that helps me with my contentment, because it puts things into the perspective of Jesus had to face the same trials. Maybe not the exact same problems or the exact same situation, but the same trials. And so that helps me with my contentment of, okay, I don't need to sit here and just desire X, Y, or Z. Remembering what Christ did, and since I remember what he did, that puts my context on the heavens instead of on the world. And so I think that's the first key to real contentment, is letting go of our fleshly desires, of our worldly desires, and aligning our hearts with God, and putting that desire that we truly have back in our focus back on who God is, who Jesus is, and how can we be more like Christ, and how can we be closer to God. The second thing that helps me to be content is that not only did Jesus do all these things, the Bible says in this passage, it says that Jesus understands where we're coming from. Jesus has the same temptations that we had. It might look differently for us than it did for him, but he still tempted the exact same ways. And so I can be content in letting something go Because if it was good enough for God to let go, or if it was, even if you flip how you say that, and it was wrong enough for him to not want it, or to not pursue it, or not desire it, then it should also be wrong for me. Because that contentment came from, okay, I could have X, Y, or Z. I could have this big house. I could have millions in the bank. I could have somebody, I could have a wife or a husband that looks like this or acts like this. I could have this social status. I could have X, Y, or Z. Yet, none of those match up to the level of love and peace, and none of them satisfy my soul the way that being with God will. Desiring what God desires and pursuing what his plan for my life is. None of those things that the world can't offer me will bring me the right amount that I actually need. And so there's contentment to be found in, you don't have to have everything somebody else has. You don't have to pursue what somebody else is pursuing. You don't have to have the same story as another person. You can be content, just like I'm learning, you can be content in just the simple things of who God is and just trying to be more like Christ. There's so much more contentment in just that identity that God gives you, because Jesus is somebody who can relate. He's not some random guy who can't relate to what you're going through. He knows what you're facing. He knows those feelings you have. He knows the thoughts popping up. And he can relate to you because he's been in a similar situation before. So there's contentment to be found in being close to Jesus, whether things are good or whether things are bad. There's a certain level of contentment to have. And so that's the second thing. And the third thing that I wanted to take note of that always gives me, like, it always puts a smile on my face when I read the last verse. The first part of it is having confidence to draw near to the throne of God. One of the main things I love about God is that God invites us into his throne room. He invites us to be close to him. And if you don't know anything about a king, when a king is in their throne room, in order to go in, you have to have very special permission in order to even walk into that throne room. It takes a lot for you to be able to have that access to go in there, historically speaking. But our God is so good, he's like, no, I want you to confidently come into my throne room and draw near to me. God calls us to draw near to him in his throne room, in his bedroom, in his dwelling place. He wants us there. And to me, that's just such a special thing. And then it goes into saying the throne of grace. I heard somebody say one time, grace is the strength that you need for the times that whenever things are the roughest. Grace is that strength that keeps you going. And then it also talks about that we may receive mercy and find grace to help in time of need. Mercy is just unmerited favor. It's favor that you get from God that you don't deserve because you didn't do anything for it. But why do we get mercy from God? Because of who Jesus is, because of what he did for us on the cross. He paid basically our ticket into heaven. And we get mercy from God through that. To put it bluntly, we don't have to experience what we deserve, which really, I promise you, that's not a pain that you want to carry. So there's also contentment to be found in that we don't have to take on the punishment that we actually do deserve. So yeah, I would encourage you all to practice getting deeper in your level of contentment and in your level of sacrificing more and more of yourself to be gaining more and more of who God is, and to be aligning more with his desire and his plan for your life, because it's a beautiful thing. The Bible tells us that. He tells us he has a beautiful plan for each and every person, that it'll be different from the next person, and that it will be exactly what will satisfy you. So that's my encouragement for you today, is to be content with what you have and to be content with who God is in your life, and to desire more of him. I hope this was encouraging. I hope this was a blessing to you. And I love you. Can't wait to see you next time. Peace. I want to do the clap.